Okay, episode 4, Rolling with the Punches. I am happy to be joined by Darnel Giovani of Mystic Black MMA on Instagram, YouTube. You could probably, I'll plug him. I'll drop all his links down below. Thank you, Darnell, for joining us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you, boss.
Yeah, so this is the first time we're meeting actually, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say. And I mentioned to you a little bit, but I've had Brendan Fitzgerald on. A bunch of people that just do stuff in media. And you're like the first person. I mentioned I had an old podcast that I used to do, but you're the first person who I'm newly speaking to that I just brought on. So I'm excited to have you joining us.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. This is my first time getting interviewed by somebody else, so I'm excited as well.
Yeah, so the way I found you, I'll kind of start off there. I'm a big MMA guy. I've always been a huge fan since I'd say 2014. John Jones, Daniel Cormier, Dennis Seaver, McGregor, Aldo McGregor, Chad Mendez McGregor, like that era of fighting. And so I just watch. You know how it is. Always watching interviews, the media stuff. That is what makes me love MMA. And I stumbled upon an interview that you did with it was Chael Sonnen, and then I actually think it was Megan O'Leary, the one that brought me into it. It was recently,
Yeah.
and I saw you did stuff with Chael Sonnen, John Anik. So I was like, oh, who's this guy? It's really interesting. So I reached out to you, and here we are. So that's what I wanted to kind of start off on. How old are you now, by the way? I was curious about that.
I am 30. I turned 31 on Saturday.
Okay, okay. And how long have you been in media, and like what kind of started you getting into this whole um podcasting media realm? Is it something you've always been passionate about?
So media-wise, when I first thought about doing something like this, because I always wanted to do broadcasting since high school. I was in the broadcasting classes every year for 4 years. I went from behind the camera, and then I just wanted to do in front of the camera, not specific interviews, but just broadcastings, news. And I always thought to myself, oh, I want to be maybe on E News and do like celebrity news, because in that time period, that was like the most interesting thing people were interested in, and that's what I wanted to do. Then I kind of thought about it, and as I've watched UFC fights since the age of 12, which my first fight that I ever watched was Anderson Silva versus Travis Lutter, which was UFC 76, something like that. It's a long time ago,
Yeah.
and my stepdad put me on MMA, and I would see things from MMA in the past, like Tito Ortiz with the blonde hair fighting Chuck Liddell, but I just never sat down and watched a full card. So knowing how much I love the sport and always going to watch fights with my friends, every single Saturday there was a card, or even if there was on TV, I figured out a way to watch it because I just thought it was just something just so amazing and different than your regular boxing. Because in that time period, to me, boxing wasn't exciting, and I really kind of fell out of love with that. I always loved WWE and wrestling, but I kind of wanted something that was, real competition. And I remember putting it out on Facebook in 2011, I believe, and I said I'm going to start my own MMA blog, and I didn't know which way I was going to go about it, but I knew I would just be giving myself to MMA in some capacity, or just what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find the word, but
Like contribute in any way
yeah,
possible.
contributing to
Yeah.
MMA in some capacity at some rate. And I went to school down here at FIU, and I got my degree within broadcasting and television production, which I can do behind the scenes things, and of course in front. And it's funny because people have asked me, who's doing your production and all the other things. I'm just like, it's not anybody, it's just me. I'm doing everything pretty much by myself. I'll ask some other people, for some digital help, like with um, like graphic design, with things like that. But besides that, I pretty much do everything myself. And then a year and a half ago, I decided I'm gonna go straight forward with it, because it was a little difficult getting out of school, and the pandemic began. Literally, I got out of school and the pandemic began. So just like, man, I can't travel to the events, I can't do anything. I got to do everything from home. How am I going to do this? And I'm just like, I'm a young guy. I know how to work the internet. I know how to speak to people. I know how to ask them questions and things like that. Let me just start my. I used to have a photography page, and I
Mhm.
turned it into my MMA page. And I didn't even have that many followers on the photography page. I think it was about 100 followers, something like that. But I changed it to my MMA page. It was originally called Strike Down MMA, and then I thought to myself, uh, what's something that like describes me, and something that I can think about that would just be different than everybody else's name. And if you go on Reddit, when I was in Las Vegas in 2015 or 16, I forget what year it was, I did a prediction for Conor McGregor, and it was during a fan Q&A, and Conor McGregor was the guy taking the questions. I asked him one question, and then I told him, "Hey, I want to announce you as the new UFC featherweight champion," and I did it, and I said within 18 seconds of the first round, I ended up being about 5 seconds off. And somehow one of my friends sends me a link and it said Mystic Black Man with hat almost predicts Conor McGregor's fight to a T. And it was me. So I was just like, that's funny. And I kind of took it off of that. I'm just like, you know what? Mystic Black MMA, that works perfectly for me. And I used it as that.
Wow, I actually had no idea that that's how you got your name. And are you a big Conor McGregor fan, by the way, or you just are a big fan of MMA? Or yeah,
I am a Conor McGregor fan. Yes, absolutely. He's somebody that has revolutionized the sport without a doubt. I am not a big fan of his recent actions and things that he
yeah,
said. I feel like there's a lot of uh, things in his life that he may not have in a good place, that he's making certain comments and the money might have gotten to him. And that's something that I always thought, if that man makes too much money, you can either go one way or the other. And that kind of goes
yeah.
with any athlete, to be completely honest. But besides being a fan of him, I'm a huge fan of the sport and a lot of other athletes.
Yeah, so you said a lot of stuff in the opening there. I had no idea that's how you got your name. Actually, I think
Yeah.
that's awesome because it's so funny. I love, it's, I think that was the fight with Aldo that you're referring to in 13 seconds when he
Yeah.
knocked him out for the featherweight title, and that's like
Yeah.
kind of what got me into like 100% sold me like this is the sport because I remember. I also want to touch on McGregor too, how he is now, and because I think you
Yeah.
made great points there, but um that is so funny that they said Mystic Black man.
This is black man with
Yeah,
that.
and I didn't know that's how you got your name though, because it's kind and especially that being such like a huge knockout in MMA history. I think that's
Yeah.
like an awesome way to get your name out there. That's really awesome. I just thought you were named that. I had no idea that whole story came with
Yeah.
it. Um, and also like so you don't work. So this is what I was curious about too when I was like researching you. You don't do you work for a production? You need all you need
All
a
good.
okay, okay. Do you work for like a production company or this is your own thing? Because I've seen you do stuff with that MMA page. I'm not sure the name of them if you could plug them right now.
MMA Island. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
MMA
don't
Island.
work. I don't work for any specific company. I do just I contribute to them. So Low Kick MMA, I've contributed to. I've done MMA Island, and I've been on the Fight podcast before. I've been on Fight Dialogue before. A couple other places I've contributed my voice to
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
interviews.
So
Yeah.
so what do they do? They just reach out to you and they're kind of like, we want you to interview this person for our page and you just like collab with them almost. Is that how it works?
They don't reach out to me to, well, sometimes it depends, because sometimes I get, to be completely honest, I get all my interviews. I'm the person that gets all my interviews. I don't have somebody specifically telling like, oh, here's somebody, we give you this person. They have maybe once or twice before, but pretty much I'm getting myself those interviews. I'm sending those emails. I'm talking to managers. I'm in those DMs. It's pretty much myself. So it's more me, them wanting to put my interviews on their
On their
platforms.
page. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's also what I wanted to talk about too. So, but I want to kind of bring it back to what you said originally on this is so basically also with the podcast, it's kind of like a motivational thing where I like to talk
Yeah.
about people's motivation, their drive, so like stuff in their life that's motivated them, their work ethic. And I've already noticed within 5 minutes starting talking to you, I think it's incredible that you edit, produce, do the whole production. Even now, you're just saying you reach out to all these personalities, fighters, everyone, because like in I went to school for media, so what I do now, and well, I just started this podcast, but I've been around in the media realm for a while, and any job that I've worked, I have separate
Yeah.
businesses on the side, especially in editing though. The fact that you're able to manage all of that stuff is incredible to me, and like that's a side of like media people that I feel like the world doesn't really see. Like they just watch your interview with Chael and you see it's like entertaining, he's a good personality, it's Chael's son and you guys have a great conversation, but they don't realize all the work that goes into getting especially a Chael Sonnen level of person and then
Yeah.
editing and getting it out there. All they see is the 20, 30, 40-minute interview that's on their screen that's there for their entertainment. So um, how do you have that work ethic? Like, how do you, you know what I mean? Break that down for me. What motivates you?
Well, what motivates me is definitely giving that opportunity to speak to people that I've been watching for such a long time. And my thing is, if I know how to send an email, if I know that there's a possible way for me to get to this person, I will find that way. Like even if I have to go as deep as, oh, who cuts their hair? I'll find their barber and ask their barber, hey, do you think that they'll have time to get an interview with me or something like that? I will dig as much as possible to get to that person. I mean, there are some people who are just completely unavailable and it's hard to get there, but in my mind, nobody's impossible. I don't care how small I am, I don't care how big I am. I'm going to try to get to talk to you as much as I can. Not to say I want to talk to every single person, but there's a lot of specific people who I feel have very inspiring stories, and that inspires me to tell people those stories, because a lot of people look at MMA guys as just these vicious people that just go in there and get want to kill somebody, or just like there's certain people they might see and it's just like, man, what's wrong with that person? Why would he say something like that? The guy might have a completely different story and you see a different side of him, and I want to put that out there, and it'll give people a different respect for the sport. So that definitely motivates me for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you kind of have that you kind of play that news reporter role almost, where like your motivation behind it is natural, where you want to, although it's the produced content, you really do have that perspective, like I want to see what this person has to say. So like for instance, the McGregor, I agree with what you said earlier. I think the
Mhm.
dude, first of all, he's my favorite fighter, in what previously in and out the inside and outside the octagon. The I think the whole Mystic Mac and the way that he was able to kind of use the law of attraction and all that to kind of build his name and his career, is it was incredible at the time before he was kind of going off on the wrong side. So I love McGregor, but use that as an example where like you're looking at it from the perspective of like, I want to hear what this guy has to say about why he did these certain things. Not you're just doing it because you really want to know why. I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's truly your passion about it. Um, yeah, that's really all I got to say about that.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's
I appreciate that.
yeah, because we that was one of the questions I asked. Like, when was it that you knew that you wanted to do like what you're currently doing? When was it that you found your passion?
Definitely found my passion in there was a specific fight that I was watching, and I believe Errol Hawani was doing an interview with someone, and he felt the emotion of the other person, that he almost cried when he was talking to him. Like he literally felt that person's emotion. And I've seen that happen in another sport as well, in tennis, and like John McEnroe interviewing Roger Federer, and Roger Federer just very emotional after a loss, and just the emotion that they have just watching somebody, and you're not even that person in the ring or the cage. That just, man, that I just love the passion of these guys. And I feel like in that time period, I forgot exactly what fighter he was interviewing. I'll remember and I'll DM you and I'll tell you which one it was. But when I saw him get that emotional, it showed me how much passion he had and how much passion the fighter had for the sport as well. And I'm just like, man, I love this sport this much too. And to work to a point where I see these guys there in their inspiring stories, and I've watched these interviews that they do behind the scenes, like that Megan O'Leary does with these guys that are just one on one, and they kind of have a different, they're in a different space, and especially a different mind space. And just seeing those certain different things, there wasn't that specific moment, but I definitely knew this is what I love for sure. Especially this past year and a half that I've been doing this, I can definitely feel how much I love it and how much I'm motivated every morning to wake up to set up my week of interviews, to make sure I'm doing my research on the guys I have interviews coming up for, to make sure I'm sending everything I need to send to get these people, to make sure I'm putting out a product for everybody during the week that they can see. And then, we can talk about it, and to talk to everybody when they want to speak to me too about this sport. That's amazing. And I don't feel like I'm working. That's the best feeling.
Yeah, great point that you made right there too. I mean, I'm already so that the point of this show really was to break down everything that you're kind of saying. Like
Yeah.
I was the root of it was trying to see where people's passions lied, trying to see like what motivates people. And it's funny, like you answered all these questions without even me asking them to, and I think that's really dope, to be honest with you, because it's pretty apparent that you're doing this because you love it. It's not because of
Yeah.
anything else. And that was the most natural answer that I've really heard so far. Shout out Brendan Fitzgerald, great guest, but
Brandon Fitzgerald is a man. I look up to him big time. I definitely want to interview him one day. I'm just, it's hard to get these guys, especially when they're working. These
Yeah.
guys, it's not just they think it's just 2 days or 3 days of working. These guys have full weeks of doing research and putting together what they're going to say when they're on there. Especially somebody like Brendan Fitzgerald, who's the color commentator. That's a lot he has to do on there.
Have you been in contact with him? He would definitely be down to do something with you. You guys would, I think you guys would have a great episode actually.
No, I have yet to send him a message yet, but he's somebody that is on my radar because I'm doing certain people like in time. So I had that Megan Olivi that I did. I did the John Anik, I did the Ariel Hawani and Brendan Fitzgerald, Paul Felder, and DC are a couple people that are on my list that are in that broadcasting area, and Karen Bryant as well. Shout out to Karen Bryant. Love Karen Bryant.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing all those.
Karen, if you're listening.
So I want to break down these interviews a little bit and get into
Yeah.
that because that's kind of what I found you on. I feel like that's kind of the root of what you do.
Yeah.
So first, who was like the first interview you did when you were like, okay, this is like I got to start getting more guests. This is awesome. Who was like, what was the one that really got you going on the path that you're on now?
The one that really got, so the first interview I ever did was Mike Bond, MMA Junkie. Shout out to him. Amazing human being, to be completely honest. Such a nice guy. And he just responded. He's like, absolutely, bro, we can do it tomorrow. And he was like, let's do it. But the one that got me going definitely was my interview with Burt Watson, because he just was so, there's a difference between you asking somebody a question and just give you like a 1 word answer, 2 word answer, which is possible.
Yeah.
Some people are just like that. But the responses that Burt Watson gave me and the stories that he told me brought me so much life, because he told me things about Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Nelson Mandela. Like he's been through so many periods of of combat sports, period. And just how lively he was, and at the age that he is, I'm not going to say his age. You tells me not to say that. Was just so awesome to hear that. And that interview right there definitely was one of my favorites. Still to this day, one of my favorite interviews for sure.
And looking at that, that's awesome to hear. Looking at the future of your interviews, you said you want to do a bunch of the ESPN guys and all that. Who's like your dream interview that you could see yourself doing soon? Someone that like hands down, someone who you just look up to that you would enjoy interviewing. Who is that?
I think one of my biggest people that I would love to interview. I did one of them 2 weeks ago, which was Frankie Edgar. That one that's one of my favorite people. That's what that if I know some people, like especially broadcasters, don't speak about, or journalists don't speak about like their favorite fighters, but I will say Frankie Edgar is my favorite fighter of all time. So to get to interview him, that was amazing. But number one, maybe I want to say Daniel Cormier. I would love to talk to Daniel Cormier because I feel like he's full of so much information. He's very honest, and he doesn't beat around the bush with anything that he says, and everything he says he means. And he's definitely up there for me for an interview. I hope to get that at some point, but Daniel Cormier for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's dope. I would love to see that. I feel like DC's a good person too, like from the heart. Like I remember when he fought Jones the first time, that like I said, that press conference where they got into it and they were you know what I'm talking about, when there was chaos everywhere. And everyone was like a huge Jones fan at that time. It was kind of like John Jones was like the big star in the UFC. And I remember DC just being so down to earth. And I remember always like, it's so hard to hate this guy at a time when everyone was like going for John Jones. And now you look at him, he's just such a stand-up dude. I agree with you. Talking to Daniel would probably be an awesome interview as well.
And I felt like at that time people were hating him because if we even go to wrestling times, there's a heel and there's a face. And I felt John Jones played the heel really well, that the crowd loved him. They loved him so much. And like DC, this father, this good guy, we're not going to go for him. We're going to go for John Jones. And I feel like that's why people were against DC in that time period. But let's be honest, look how that all panned out.
Yeah, I know. I know it's crazy how time works, especially in MMA. It's like 1 minute you could be on top of the world, and then
next minute everything changes, right?
Exactly. So I want to talk more about your like social media strategies almost. So I had last week a good friend of mine. He runs like a sports account. His name's CJ Vogel. He does like a sports kind of like a highlight page where he like posts pictures of things that happen and he just lets people comment and like it. But that's his brand. That's what he gets sponsorships off of. So what would your strategy, and he was kind of giving me strategies also on like how he would get engagement, how he collaborates, all that stuff. So from your perspective on interviewing people and the job that you do, because you kind of have it all in one. You got to do the interviews, you got to market, you got to promote all this stuff. What's kind of your strategy on getting those interviews and running your media empire, really?
For me, is making sure people know something is coming up. Like if I have an interview coming up, you're gonna know about it a week before, or maybe the week of, but you're gonna know about it before it drops. So that's always important to me. Putting it out the right time. Putting out an interview in the morning is not a smart idea because everybody's at work. When are they gonna watch it? I learned this early in my early days because I would do interviews live and there would be maybe one person watching it. Not to say I need a bunch of people watching it live at the same time, but the engagement of it wasn't really good because who's really looking for interviews at 9 o'clock in the morning, you know? So
Yeah.
the timing of it wasn't smart. So definitely putting things out at the right time. Definitely putting things out when there's something big in MMA going on. If there's a big card coming up, making sure you're using the correct hashtag. So when people click something, it'll bring you to this interview page, whatever it is, it'll bring you there. So definitely strategizing with those things and tagging the right people. Of course, you know, you want to, if I have something with a fighter, I'm going to tag them and I'm going to ask that fighter as well, hey, if it's okay with you, that I don't, and they don't, remember, they don't have to do this. If it's okay with you, can you just repost it on your page? And
Yeah.
they'll do it. I don't think I've had anybody not repost something that I've done with them. So you just have to ask in the right way. And honestly, remember, fighters do things for money and for promotional periods and all that stuff. I don't pay them for interviews, so
Mhm.
they don't have to do that for me. So it's out of the kindness of their hearts, and that definitely helps as well when they or retweet something or repost something. Then a lot of people will see it. So definitely that works as well.
Yeah. You mentioned when you were getting those interviews, you said I'll reach out to the barbers if I have to. Has there ever been a
Yeah.
situation where you've reached out to a barber of someone and been like, "Hey, what's going on with this person?"
There has been a situation where I reached out to a barber. There's been a situation too where I'll reach out to somebody's like brother that they don't even, nobody even knows they have a brother, but
Hmm.
I'll find out that this person, this is their brother or this is their person, and I'll get there. Like for instance, with even though I met John Anik 5 years ago in Las Vegas, and he lives down here in Boca Raton, and he said, hey, if you ever need help with anything, you let me know, email me, whatever. I guess I had the wrong email for John Anik because I was hitting him up, nothing. John Anik, twin brother, Jason Anik. He's on a show with Bilal Muhammad. I'm like, you know what? Let me reach out to Jason. Shout out to Jason Anik, by the way, such an amazing guy. I get to host Remember the Show with him in a month. Um,
Oh wow.
I sent him an email. I mean, I sent him a DM on Instagram. He saw it. He's like, of course, man. I'll connect you. Absolutely. Boom. I got John Anik. And not that many people know that John Anik has a twin brother
Yeah, I
or
had
a
no
brother,
idea
period.
either.
Yeah.
That I respect that so much from you. That's awesome. That you would even think out of the box like that. And
Yeah. Jason Anik, it's not even somebody with like, oh, he has all these big followers. No, Jason Anik probably has like 100 followers on Instagram. Nothing crazy. And he helped me with getting somebody who's on Saturday pay-per-views, all the time, which is
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, wait, you said you and Jason have a show coming up. Is that what you said? It kind of lagged. It was a little laggy over there. You
Oh,
guys are doing
sorry.
something together?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on. He has a show with Bilal Muhammad, and I'm gonna get to be on the show. I'm gonna get to host the show with him. The next time Bilal fights.
Okay, that's awesome. So he
Yeah.
does it during, like, he commentates over it, kind of like his brother, or it's
No. He just does a podcast and he talk about, well, kind of like, I don't know if you ever seen like the Florian and Anik podcast.
yes, yes, yes.
Very very similar, but they do a game show at the end of the podcast with two fighters, two media personalities, something, and it's really cool, like a trivia game show.
That's awesome. So you've been able to kind of build a relationship with the annex during your time in media. And
Absolutely. Then they're, I promise you, some of the most awesome people. The Annex, Bilal, Cody Merrow, shout out to him. He's the one that produces Kenny Florian and Annex show and Remember the Show. Amazing guy. Those people, like that tight knit group of them, are such amazing humans. I'm very grateful for them.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm actually, I am inspired by the way that you reach out to people and kind of, I heard advice one time. I forgot, it was like an influencer had said this, the best thing to do in like trying to make yourself successful is to kind of like don't take no for an answer. And I feel like you demonstrate kind of that the best. Like you DM John Anik on Instagram. I don't know how many followers he has. He's probably a ton of them, but odds are he's not,
Yeah.
excuse me, odds are he's not going to see them because it's flooded with a ton of DMs, but you kind of take the approach of like, I'm going to find these people's barbers and brothers. And I think that's such a good idea. And
I I will, like, people, like sometimes other people will be like, "Hey man, how did you get this person?" Or "Can you get me this person?" I mean, like, I don't mind helping anybody, but at
mhm,
the same time, to me, you definitely can get. If I can get there, you definitely can get there. There's nothing I'm like specially doing that. Oh my God, it's this Darnell. I got to be honest. No, I'm just going for it, and that's my thing. Go for it. Why not? You never know what can happen. You know, I might shoot my Conor McGregor shot one day. I don't know. I definitely can dig or want to get there at some point, but like at least I'm going to try. I will do everything in my power to try to get there. There's no to me in a sense of like myself going for it. Somebody can say no to me, and I've been turned down before, absolutely. But there's no to me in trying because I'm going to no matter what.
exactly. Yeah, I respect that a lot. Have you done any, this is a side note, have you done any
Yeah.
work with like, or thought about doing any work with like Rogan or trying to get in contact with him? Because I know that would be like the ultra. I feel like you guys would have like I mean, anyone who can get Rogan on would be awesome. But like, have you ever thought of even trying to reach out to him?
That man is so busy that
Hmm.
he doesn't even have time to talk to himself. That's
Yeah.
probably why he talks so much on that show. But I have not tried. That's something I would love to do maybe later down the road. I don't need to do that right now. I feel like
Hmm.
there's a lot of other people that I want to speak to before I get to the Joe Rogan stage. And to be honest, I'd like to be on Joe Rogan show one day, and I want him to me and him just chop it up and we just talk like that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I always I think about that. Like one day I would love to be on Rogan.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome to join him and
Hell
talk about that.
yeah. That's one of I know he says some crazy stuff, but you know what? He gives freedom of speech definitely a big platform right there. And not to say everything he says is right, but you can go on that show and literally talk about anything. And that's
Yeah.
kind of something that I love. You know, that's something that I do myself with fighters. It's like it's not always just fight questions. Let's talk about something else. You know, they get the same questions all the time. Got to switch it up.
Yeah, for sure. Let's bring it back to. So I want to kind of talk about your upbringing and
Yeah.
you as a person. So, um, have you always been into? You said you mentioned that you like boxing before. I also wanted to touch on that too because I think that's kind of how everyone got into MMA a little bit. You know, boxing's a dying breed. They don't give you the fight. This is always what I would say. Like they don't give you the fights that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the place. There's so much politicking, and with the UFC, since it's kind of one big promotion and it kind of dominates the sport of MMA, we see those fights that we want to see. So I feel like the way you kind of fell in love with the sport is the way that almost, well, I did, and certainly a lot of other people fell in love with the sport. But your upbringing, like, is that something that you always been invested in combat sports or like regular sports like football, basketball, baseballs, or what were you like as a child with sports?
So with sports, definitely boxing. I always watch any Tyson fight, Holyfield, any of those guys that were fighting. I was always watching that. I was a big WWE fan. I know they might not consider a sport, but those people are athletes.
No, yeah, for sure.
I'm still a WWE fan. I still watch it to this day. I mean, not just WWE, but wrestling period, because there's a lot of other great organizations such as AEW, ROH, New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's a lot of really good organizations out there. So definitely a huge fan of that. Baseball, I grew up watching the Yankees and the Marlins as well. I'm a big basketball fan. That's a big thing for me. I watch every season. I don't have a specific team that I associate myself with. I used to be a Knicks fan, but I got out of that depression. I couldn't do it anymore. I don't like James Dolan. I think James Dolan is a piece of fill in the blank, and I could never be a fan of that kind of an organization. So I had to get out of that.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge LeBron James fan. Pretty much anywhere he goes, I'll follow him, of course. Minus when he came to the Miami Heat. I'm not a huge Miami Heat fan. Um, no offense to the Miami Heat, but I'm
Mhm.
not a fan of their fans. So, and I always say that, and I'll continue to say that. Um, Tennis, of course, I love tennis. My aunt put me on tennis. I love tennis. I've watched that since I was like 6 or 7 years old. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to sports. Football, of course, I do watch football, but definitely was something I watched as I got older, especially when I got to high school. That's when I got huge on football.
Mhm. So you've always kind of just been in like this involved in sports one way or another. Like you've always been passionate
Yeah,
about it in general.
visually. I play a little basketball, but nothing crazy. No, not like that.
Do you train at all by any chance? Like, do you like? Because I know I like to go spar with like friends. We'll get headgear. Like, I trained boxing a little bit one
Mhm.
summer for like 8 weeks, and like that was
Yeah.
some of the most fun I've ever had, but it was tough as hell. But do you train MMA by any chance, or you're just full out watching it?
So back in the day, I used to do American Top Team here in Miramar.
Oh wow.
I did it for a couple months, but it was just honestly, it was just too expensive, and I couldn't
Mm.
afford it. That's
Just
definitely something I do want to get back into. And once I'm making those big bucks at some point, I definitely want to get into some boxing, some Muay Thai. 100%. I want to one day get my black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That would be awesome.
mm.
But not right now. No, I'm just watching.
I would, if I were you, I'd start telling people I trained at 18 at American Top
No,
Team.
I don't. Only if somebody will ask me that, I'll tell them. But I'm not going to
They
say
don't
that.
want
So,
to.
so then all of a sudden there is some person that trains at a top team and they're
Oh, that's
way ahead of
true.
me, and then I get beat up. Nah, I'm just. I don't want to give myself. I don't want to give myself that height, and then all of a sudden I just bring it down. No, I don't want to do
That's funny though.
that.
Have you personally met any of these guys in real life? Because you mentioned like you started doing this stuff during the pandemic, so I can
Yeah.
imagine a lot of the interviews are like virtual. But have
Mhm.
you done or met any of these dudes in person, or are you looking forward to doing interviews in person with anyone soon?
Yeah, yeah. Burt Watson, I've met and worked with him. I still work with him now. I've met Megan Olivi. I've met Ariel Hawani. I've met Daniel Cormier, Frank Mir, Conor McGregor, uh, Dustin Poirier, Nick Lenz,
Oh
Jorge
wow.
Masvidal. Oh man, I live in South Florida, so it definitely helps. Who else? I met a lot. When I went to Vegas, it actually was the MMA award, so a lot of these guys were already there, and I got the honor of meeting them. Paige Van Zant was there, Ryan Couture, Frank Mir.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people for sure in the past, and definitely want to meet more and interview more because I got a lot of guys that live down here. Oh, I met Yoel Romero,
Mm.
Austin Vanderford, a couple guys down there at first round. Um, Definitely, there's so many guys that live and train down here. So my next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing some in person interviews, and I have a specific style of show that I'm going to be premiering hopefully within the next month. Premiering, I don't even know if I'm going to premiere it because it's gonna. I might pitch it, so we'll see what happens.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. Did you meet all these guys have you done like UFC media? You know what I mean? Where they like stay kind of like the post fight, like John Morgan, and like they kind of have like the all access, like you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you been invited to do that before or no?
No, not yet. I haven't been invited for a UFC event, but I have been invited for Bellator,
Okay.
PFL. I'll be doing PFL next week. Bellator I've been invited to as well, but it was when they're too far. I can't do them yet, but I will soon. I've been invited to XCMMA, I believe. They just had an event in South Carolina. I got invited to that, and that's it for now. But I have not personally sat in a media. Oh wait, yes, I have. I did the Jake Paul and
Uh,
Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley. I did that, and I did the Logan Paul
oh, really?
And Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, I was there when all of that whole crazy thing happened. I was there.
Oh, wow. How'd you get invited to the Floyd thing? That's awesome. Did you get to meet? Well, you saw Floyd in person, but
Yeah, yeah.
you did any media with him or no? It was kind of
So I did media with Logan Paul. I don't know that interview's on my page,
yeah, I did see
and
that.
then I was waiting in the room for Floyd, and I was gonna get an interview with him, and then the whole thing went down, and
Oh,
the PR lady just like we don't know if he's coming. So I waited for about an hour and a half. He never showed up, and then he ended up showing up about 3 hours later, and the guys who still were there
got
got to do an
interviews with
interview with me.
him.
So I literally just missed that opportunity, but I just it was I didn't think he would come back because that whole hat situation was not good.
Yeah.
It was a little scary to be honest because I didn't
No,
know what was going to happen. You know,
oh,
these
that's
guys are.
true.
You ever seen Floyd Mayweather's guys? They're huge
Oh,
guys. I don't know
yeah.
if they have guns. I don't know if they're gonna start shove. A couple of media guys got hurt.
Mhm.
It was crazy.
Yeah, did Famio person or like who else put it on? It was Famio and I don't want was it Showtime? It was Famio and Showtime that did it. Did they
Famio and Showtime, yeah.
they reached out to you or you how do you even kind of like do that? Where you just or you just kind of like network your way into the events where you're
I
doing media?
just I just there was an application to do
Oh,
to fill out, and I just filled it out, and yeah, that's it. And they either they accept you or they deny you. I've been denied before for sure, but I got accepted for that one, and we're all good from there.
that's awesome that you got to do the Logan Paul thing.
Yeah,
I
it was
definitely
cool. It
that's
was
a
cool. It was different for sure, but you know, it was cool. And not to say that's a lot of things that I want to do. I don't mind doing a Paul brother thing because they're actually I feel they're doing good things for the sports in a sense of getting athletes paid more money. So I can't really hate on them. But the other celebrity boxing thing, I'm not really interested
Oh
in
yeah,
doing.
that. Yeah, I actually wanted to get into that a little bit, but I'm on board with you too. I think like first of all, I actually it's crazy too because I feel like Jake Paul's starting to turn into like a likable guy, which is starting to be really weird.
I, honestly, like I never hated him. Like I don't have. It's very hard for me to hate somebody if he's going in there. He's
No.
actually training. He's not
Hmm.
like BSing with anything that he's doing. He's training with guys like John Pascal and getting in there and sparring these guys, bringing some MMA guys just to, that's a smart tactic because you know how they're gonna look when they're in a boxing ring. I think he's doing a lot of smart things. So, and then he's getting these guys paid more money. Honestly, he really is. He's making the MMA guys more money.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just jump right into like the fight talk. I definitely agree with you on the Jake Paul thing because
Yeah.
um you made a great point. You said I love wrestling, but I wanted something more authentic, and that's kind of what the whole brand of MMA is. It's wrestling content. You look at like Colby Covington. You got heels,
It's
faces, these people that
real.
yeah, they have this thing, but they're really getting in there and they're putting their lives on the line. So that's what makes it so interesting. But the thing about Jake is like I actually feel like the dude's a legit boxer. Like I feel like if he, I mean I'm talking like if you throw him in the ring with like I think he weighs like 190. So, or is that what he's walking? He's walking around like 190.
No, I think he's walking around like a little over 200, maybe
Well,
like 205, something like that.
he's fighting at like 190. But the
Fighting at
thing,
190. Yeah, yeah.
the thing, you're right. He's walking around probably like 205, 200. But if you throw him in there with like someone who, like, say, throw him in with like I don't even know who I would like. You know the dude who's about to fight Anthony Joshua.
Usyk?
Usyk, yeah. If you throw
Hmm.
him in, because I think he used to fight at 200 before he's moving up
Yeah.
to heavyweight. If you throw him in with someone like that, he's gonna get absolutely like destroyed. Like,
And that's a whole different ballgame. And it's so weird to see it from that perspective because people wanted to jump in with guys like that. No, man, what
mhm,
boxer in their beginning of their career is fighting somebody of that stature? And it's not an
yeah,
exhibition like Logan Paul did. But no, he's gonna work his way up, but he's working his way up in a very smart tactical way. And I'm impressed by his team. And then the guy who's leading who's his manager was somebody who used to work with the UFC, and he was part of that huge sale that they had when they sold the company for
mhm.
$4 billion.
Yeah, that's interesting too. But I definitely think like if you look at him and then and he makes a strong case. Like, I listen, I would have sound crazy if I said this. I think I sound crazy saying this now, but I really like, and I'm a huge McGregor fan. I mentioned to you earlier. I genuinely believe if they fought at like 180, 185, 190, like in a boxing match, I genuinely believe it would be interesting. Similar to the way that like Floyd and Connor was interesting, I think it would be a lot closer than people think because Jake is strictly training for one thing, and then
Yeah.
you got to take into account like all this stuff about Connor and now with the leg and how inactive he's been after like 2016. And he's just done like he's kind of just like freelanced the life. Like he's been on business deals with whiskey and like, and not even just Connor. If you look at like the Nate Diaz's of the world and they meet at like 185, 190, like let's look at the facts. Like I genuinely believe this dude would make it an interesting fight. Cause like you said, it's not like one of these BS like YouTuber fights that just the TikTok thing. Like Jake Paul's actually training. If he beats Woodley, I have no problem giving him credit like for the rest of his boxing career. Like I would actually say he stands a chance against all those guys.
I agree with you. If he beats Woodley,
Hmm.
for sure he's going to get more credit. I give him credit already because I can see that he's actually taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
And even the Ben Askren, you got to give him credit for that. Ben Askren's fought animal guys. I know he uses his wrestling, but Robbie Lawler was hitting him with a smaller glove, and he survived that and
Yeah.
gets knocked out by Jake Paul in a matter of seconds. So you got to give him credit for that. And like I said before, these guys are doing it in a very smart way, and I think it could take them very far. And I think that McGregor fight will happen now, especially after he just lost to Dustin. It's a very big. It will sell. It would be a easy money grab,
Yeah.
and I don't know. After Conor just injured himself his leg, I don't know how much he wants to go back to MMA. The boxing training I felt treated him better, and he actually looked good in the boxing match against Floyd Mayweather, minus him
Yeah.
getting tired, which he always has an issue with, but besides that, he looked pretty good.
It's so sad to talk about Connor now and like a
Uh,
potential matchup is with Jake Paul, man.
hey, this is reality now. This
No,
is
you're right.
reality, and what can we do? We have to be as honest as possible with it.
Well, that's kind of we'll switch over to that because that's one of the most interesting things.
Yeah,
So I've been a fan of his since, like I said, probably a couple fights before the Mendez fight is when I
yeah.
really he started catching fire. I remember watching the press conferences with him and Poirier even when see that's what got me into it. Like I said, I think they were on stage together. It was Jones, Cormier, Poirier, and McGregor. I think it was
Yeah,
I
I
believe
remember.
they were doing like a press conference together and I don't wasn't on the same card. It was I think it was UFC 178 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was with McGregor, Poirier, Jones. I mean, yeah, James Cormier, and was there two women on that card as well? Was Ronda Rousey fighting Sarah McMahon on that card?
I don't think Ronda fought because
No,
I'm trying to
no,
think. She
not
probably would
Ronda.
have
No,
been
Ronda wasn't on
headlining.
that card.
Yeah,
I forget who was on that card,
but
but
I know it
that's
was
that's
yeah,
hard to
it was
remember. There's been so
stacked.
many.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so it's so sad because I mean, this is what I think the reality of the situation is. Everyone, it's funny whenever he fights and he loses, like people love blowing up my phone because I'm always posting him on my story. Like the dude's such
it's
a role model. He was such a role model to me.
it's
But when people ask me, I tell them the reality of the situation is kind of what you said. Like I think it defines the sport of MMA. Do I think if Connor came back, he could probably beat like this is also me just being a fan talking. Like I could see him beating some guys in the top 10. But the reality is when you're out of the game for so long, the game evolves. You see that with so many fighters. It's not just
yeah.
Connor. I'm drawing a blank here, but I'm trying to think. There was it was more recently someone was out for some time, and the only one that I've really seen do it well was like George St. Pierre. But I think stylistically, George St. Pierre, like stylistically, that was such a great matchup for him when he came back and fought Bisping. Like he kind of
Mhm.
just like was able to outwear him. But anyone that's kind of taken a break from mixed martial arts for a really long time and then comes back, you could see like it's bad too because Dillashaw just won, but I do feel like that staying out the game for some time and not training really could hurt you, and that's what all it is. Do I think? I think Prime McGregor. I'm really curious on what you have to say about this, but
Yeah.
like Prime Connor, um, I think was at that time unstoppable with all the confidence, with all the trash talk. People were scared to even step in there with him. They didn't know that after him beating Mendez, they're like, oh, he could outlast a wrestler. They didn't know all the weaknesses, but at this point in his career, it's kind of tough to even see him be like a Benio Dariush, you know. I don't know. That's the reality of it. So
No, I agree with you. And the game does, get everybody gets better, especially these guys are going to come in like your AJ McKee. Look at AJ McKee. Kid is
uh-huh.
only 26 years old and he's undefeated. He's beating these guys very easy, and that's because he was training for such younger age. And when he was training at that younger age, he was getting better looks and better training compared to these other guys when they're that young.
Hmm.
Connor was not doing what AJ McKee was doing when he was 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah,
Definitely not. So that definitely makes a huge difference in what the fighters we're going to see in the future. A lot more competitive guys, and these things are going to be closer than they used to be. But my thing is with Connor is your want. There's a big difference between Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather makes just as much money as Conor McGregor, but he's still competitive and he still has never lost a fight.
yeah,
And there's a reason for that because he always, no matter what, Floyd Mayweather is always in that gym, always in that gym.
that's
When he was
true.
making those millions and millions of dollars, he was always bringing in the best guys from. Remember, he had Gervonta in his training center. He's had
Hmm.
Adrian Broner in there as well. He's bringing in these really good guys and making sure he's saying just as crisp as they are. Who is Connor bringing in to help him with those things? He's got the same guy that's always been in there from the Owen Roddies
That's
and a
true.
couple of gentlemen he has in there. It's not really helping his game progress, and it showed in his past fight with Dustin, his past two fights with Dustin. Calf kicks. They didn't prepare for calf kicks at all, not knowing that's it. That was a very weird thing to me, like as a coach, and seeing how many people have dealt with calf kicks within that division and other divisions as well, to not have your guy be
Yeah,
prepared for something like that. So for me, it's almost a coaching issue. Like I give Connor's coach credit for where he got Connor. But in this time period, his coach has made so much money too. I'm just questioning everybody's want. That's my biggest thing because they have this crazy amount of money
hmm,
that they don't know. Like, do I want to go coach somebody today? Do I want to go fight today? Connor probably took so many days off, like during these training camps, just to just like enjoy his. I know he said he wasn't around his family, he wasn't doing this. He was in Dubai for a long time. Dubai is not a place that you just like, oh, I'm going to train the whole entire time. No, man.
Yeah.
He was probably shopping or just enjoying some kind of luxury of his life that he has. That's my thing. I just question his motivation, and he didn't seem authentic anymore. And that even in that press conference, it's like he was just like forcing everything. Everything was forced, trying to find that old. It's like a wrestler coming back and trying to redo a gimmick that they had a long time ago, and it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
You gotta either just be who you are in that time period right now, or just lose the gimmick completely. So a lot of those things were just unfortunate to see, and the Habib thing was even worse to see. Even when that first happened, I thought that was way too personal,
I'm talking
and
about
that could never get to that point.
the tweet that he just made.
Besides, not even just the tweet. Even when he threw the thing at the
Oh,
bus,
okay.
that the gurney at the bus, like that was horrible. From that moment, that's when I was just like, oh, he's turning a weird page, and this either can get really good or really bad. I don't know which direction he's going to take it, but as you can see, he's not making the greatest decisions when it comes to even those tweets that he made about Habib's dad. That was
Yeah,
just
that was low.
uh, terrible.
Yeah, so I definitely I think you nailed it on the head. The only thing that I will disagree with you on is the fact, and I think it's
Mhm.
actually a good debate when you kind of compare Mayweather and Connor's career together.
Yeah.
Um, the difference I think is that Connor's fighting the best guys in the world. It doesn't matter what the situation is. When Floyd retired, it was kind of like a weird thing, and he's picking out guys. And then his last fights against like Andre Berto and guys like that. I think Connor's, and I'll give him credit where credit's due. Granted, it's kind of left
Hmm.
a bad taste in everyone's mouth because at one point you could make an argument that he could have been one of the greatest, and now it's kind of like, oh, he's just a showman. So, but that's the
Yeah.
difference between him and Mayweather. I would say like Mayweather is not taking those fights that Connor's taking.
It's hard. That's always a debate about that is had. But the only person I don't think Floyd ever ducked anybody.
Hmm.
He just may have fought him maybe a year after, but still, I don't think that person was that different. Like even when he fought Pacquiao,
I was gonna say
Floyd,
that.
Floyd was the old guy when he fought Pacquiao. It's not like Floyd was this young gentleman. He was the older guy when he fought Pacquiao. Pacquiao was peaking prime when
Yeah.
they fought. He still was
Uh,
peaking in prime in that time period.
See, that's the thing I disagree with because there was a time where like Floyd was kind of like there. It was like they should have fought, in my opinion, like 5 years before. And like around that time, I remember Floyd was kind of like it seemed like Floyd was coming up with almost every single excuse to not fight Pacquiao. Do I think they were closer to their primes
Mm-hmm.
than a lot of people make it out to be? I know Pacquiao said he had like a shoulder issue. I don't believe that at all. I think he just got
Mm-hmm.
beat by the better man.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the thing is, it's just a little like it's more the way Connor looks at it as business is the way
Mm-hmm.
Floyd. It's kind of different. Like Floyd looks.
And different sports too, so it's hard to compare
That's
because
true.
boxing. When do you ever see a fight happen when it's supposed to happen?
That's also true too, because it's not
It's
just
very hard.
Floyd. It's not just Floyd. Yeah, I mean, every fight that you want to see in boxing
Mhm.
never
We don't
happens.
know what's happening, right? We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I'll
That's
never
true.
understand that whole this put top ranked and this and Mayweather
I
promotions, all these
know.
promotions. Like it's that's something that made me hate boxing because I never got to see the fights I wanted to at that time. Like they'd call somebody out, but then they're fighting this other person, and it's just like, who is that even? Like, where do they come from? Why are
Mhm.
you even fighting that person? Oh, it's their what do you call it when you have to fight somebody? For
A
within
rematch
boxing.
clause you're talking
No,
about?
you're mandatory.
Oh, you're
They all have
mandatory. Oh, okay,
they
okay,
all
okay.
have a mandatory too,
I
which I
know.
think
I
is
know.
the stupidest thing I've ever heard for a sport. Give the
Uh,
people what they want.
yeah.
Not stupidest thing, but just like I feel like
It
just
is
give the
dumb
people what they
though.
want.
You're talking about when, like the WBC will order like someone to fight their mandatory on the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
I don't
stupid.
I
I
don't
agree
I
with
don't
you.
like that at all. And the rematch clause thing is kind of a little fishy thing to me too, but I feel like that's from a business standpoint. So I get it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I got a couple more fights I wanted to talk to you about, and then
Yep.
we'll pretty much wrap this up. So I think is it this week or next week the Derek Lewis Gone fight is
That is
that
on Saturday.
that's on this Saturday? Okay, so who?
Yep. Oh, I don't have
So
that. I didn't put that up. I gotta
I
put
was
that
just gonna
poster
say too. I
up.
love the what poster I love back there that I keep looking at. You can barely see it because it's up top, but is that the Dos Anjos McGregor poster that was supposed
Oh
to?
yeah.
Yeah, that
It
one is
is. That's
that
right.
one.
It's this one right here.
Yeah, I
A
love
fight that
that.
never happened.
I know. But
This
yeah,
one got rescheduled too.
I
That's not the original. That's
yeah
the
that
original
it
poster.
happened in December, right? The original one. I mean
Hmm.
the time it actually happened. It was supposed to
Actual
happen
one.
in July.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the best build. See, that's the thing. I look back at like at that time, it's so sad with Connor. Like that was the biggest UFC fight to make. Like Aldo had never lost. He was the only featherweight champion in the world, and it was a crazy build up. Did the whole world tour and everything.
But it was great. It ended up being an amazing events. Well, the Mendez one, that UFC 189.
That was when Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
one of the best cards I've ever seen in my life. So that
Sam.
definitely wasn't upset about that one.
I know. I miss those days though. That's the thing. But what are you looking at for this? It's a good card, but I'm just gonna really talk about the main event. Here's the
Yeah.
thing that I like. I think Derek Lewis is like an insane underdog going into this, right? Like I think the
Hmm.
odds are making him like plus 200. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I don't see how. I don't know why Derek Lewis is such an underdog going into this fight. I don't understand it at all. Like I get why he's kind of like a wild fighter, but and they people just make him out to be like that one punch, that's it. But I don't know, dude. I think Derek Lewis actually might walk out here the interim champion.
I think he does a lot of interesting things for sure. And I understand why he's the underdog, because the way that Gane has fought, he's been very tactical. He's not really getting hit that much at all.
Mm-hmm.
He takes his time. Like everything he does, he's a tactician when he gets in there. And I can see why they think he would beat Derek Lewis. Do I personally feel he's going to win? I don't think he's going to win. I think Derek Lewis has had more experience with more high level athletes in there. He's fought Daniel Cormier for the title. He's been in there with Francis Ngannou. So has Gane. I know him and Gane used to train together, but being in a cage and sparring is very different. Derek Lewis has just fought the who's who of guys, and I feel like that experience right there is going to make a huge difference, especially in maybe the later rounds, because taking those heavy shots from Derek Lewis, that's not going to be fun. There's no way.
Yeah,
And Derek Lewis is more athletic than people think too. That's
I
another
agree
thing.
with you.
He's Mr. I get up whenever I want. So if Gane wants to go the wrestling route, if Derek Lewis gets up, man, it's scary. And you can see in a small range of how when he knocked out Curtis Blades, how much power he still has.
I know.
That's gonna, in some sense of the way, Gane is gonna be a little afraid of that, and especially when he feels it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fight's gonna either is my prediction for it. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely got Derek Lewis win the fight, but I think it's either gonna be really quick or really long and boring. I don't see any middle ground to it because I could see if Gane, like you said, is kind of just like being very technical and just kind of like fighting an Israel Adesanya way, where you're just outstriking him constantly and just great head movement, very technical. Or I
Mm-hmm.
just see Derek Lewis catching him with a shot in like 2 seconds into the
Yeah, and
fight.
him being in Houston, that crowd is
That's
gonna pump
true.
him up. Oh man, that would be the biggest thing he can do right there. And I feel like he's not somebody that, like, oh, I feel a lot of pressure. No, he feels pressure to want to make that crowd go crazy, make everybody happy, and do something for his adopted hometown, because he's not originally from Houston. But that is, I don't know, that would make me very happy for sure.
Yeah, I would love to see him raise the belt. I think that would be awesome too. He's such a great guy on the mic too. It's
Such a
it's
great guy.
awesome.
And you know he'll say something crazy too if he wins that belt. He might take his pants off.
I know, I know. That man is just hilarious. Last fight I want to talk about before I got
Yeah,
one or two more questions for you.
yeah,
UFC 268. So I was hoping I was going to be able to go to this because they were supposed to do it in New York. But I don't think, because today we just got like an announcement that they're doing like mandatory vaccinations everywhere in New York. It was like the
oh
first,
yeah, that's right. So that might have to get switched up.
and I doubt New York's gonna. They're not gonna do it in MSG. I'm from here. You know what I'm saying. I know how they are. I doubt they'll do it, but they'll probably do it at Vegas. But it would be awesome in MSG nonetheless. But
Yeah,
Kamaru, Colby for the belt. And there's a couple fights on there where we could talk about Gaethje and Chandler. I don't know if that's confirmed
yeah,
yet, but I know that's like I'm pretty sure it's confirmed.
in the works kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Kobe though. The thing is with him, I feel like everyone's kind of like he doesn't deserve. I saw a post the other day. It was a lot of like MMA hot takes, and I pretty much agreed with all of them. The only one I didn't agree with was that Colby doesn't deserve a title shot. I'll tell you why I think he does. I don't even think Jorge should have. I love Masvidal, awesome guy. I don't even think Masvidal should have fought for the belt the second time when he lost. Do I think he looked
Mhm.
good in the first round? Do I think it's a huge draw? The first one sold a ton of pay-per-views. I get it. But this to me is the fight to make. Like I get Edwards is on, what is it, a 9-win streak now that he's
Yeah,
something
nine
like
fight
that.
or 10, could be 10. I don't know. I'm
10
not
maybe.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, incredible what he's done since he lost to Kamaru. But I mean, I think this is the fight to make. I think Kobe's the only one in the division that actually has somewhat of a chance to beat him. And I think if Kamaru ends up winning in November, then that man is probably the greatest one of the greatest MMA fighters I've ever seen of all time. So how do
Oh,
you think that?
for sure, I agree with the
Yeah,
Kamaru Usman thing because he's my pound for pound number one fighter right now. But yeah, a lot of people were disagreeing that Kobe doesn't deserve the shot. I get it. He's only won one fight since that Kamaru Usman fight, but he's the most competitive. He gave Kamaru Usman the most competitive fight when they fought each other. They if that would have went to decision, Kobe could have won that fight. He
yeah,
could have won that fight. So the fact that they had such an amazing fight the first time, why wouldn't anybody want to see it the second time? I don't get people being upset. I'm actually very excited for that fight because I think Kobe gives him the most difficult contest because Kobe, as much as he talks bad and much as people hate him, he's a very good fighter.
yeah. I agree with
Uh,
you,
but
100%.
I think that Kamaru has
Yeah,
gotten way better since then,
I agree.
especially with his hands. The fact that Kamaru Usman has a jab is
Scary.
unbelievable and shows you the yeah how scary it is because it's like, damn, I was gonna beat him in striking. Now he's good at striking. Where do I beat him? So it's just like now he has that kind of a goat mentality looking thing and just like how can somebody beat him? You know, just like every time John Jones fought, how can somebody beat him? He's good
Yeah.
in every single place. So I think it'll be a little competitive in the beginning, but I think Kamaru Usman beats him faster than he did last time, and I think he beats him in a like bad way to the point where they have to pull him off.
Wow. I mean, see, here's the thing. I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen that way.
Yeah.
I want to break down Kobe though. I think it's interesting. He did one interview with I think the guys at Submission Radio, who I love
Mm-hmm.
listening to because
Yeah.
it's funny. They got like
Shouts
such
to
a
them.
good relationship with him. It's so funny. But he made a good point. He said that he's not. Oh, he mentioned how he's not going to do any media leading up to it, and that's the last interview he's kind of going to do. I think that shows a lot. I think he's really focused on the fight, which is a good sign. I also want to mention that since I feel like although Kamaru has kind of gone better, I feel like Colby's also gone better. We just haven't gotten a chance to see it because he's been training with his new camp
MMA
and doing
Masters.
his own thing, MMA Masters. Yes, so I don't know. I mean, Kamaru, we've seen it. He has more experience in the octagon. I just think it's going to be an insane fight. I also think Colby has one of the most underrated stories in MMA when in regards to his like kind of come up. And I get he gets a little bit more disrespectful than even like Connor sometimes when he talks about like other
Mm-hmm.
people. But I'm be honest with you, I actually 100% like buy into it because I don't see why there's any point of being nice to anyone when he's there for one reason and one reason only. Like, and he makes a good point. Like, yeah, he does cross the line, granted, but they are stepping in the cage at the end of the day to fight. So I don't see why he would try to be friends with anyone, especially when everyone hates him anyway at that point. So like I, I I like Colby a lot actually. He's kind of grown on me in this new kind of era. And I think he besides Kamaru, he would easily be the best welterweight in the world without Usman in that division. So I'd be interested to
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard definitely to like Kobe because he just goes places you don't need to. You know, they
yeah.
just bringing Jorge Masvidal's mother of his kids somewhere like that's some stuff you have to be very careful in life because you don't know how somebody else is. You know, you don't know what they can do to you when they see you and you're not in a public eye. And
That's
I feel
true.
like you don't have to do that many things to stay relevant. You know, I feel like because Trump is no longer president, he can't run with the MAGA thing anymore. It's hard for him to do that, so he had to find something else that he can run with. And it
Mhm.
once again, it doesn't like it's like I said with Conor McGregor, it doesn't seem authentic anymore. It doesn't seem authentic coming from Colby anymore. I feel
That's
like if you
true.
just you people already know who you are. You're already up there. You're about to fight for a belt. There's no need to keep this personality going. Just be yourself. I've seen him talk to somebody and be very motivational and just like tell them how they can get somewhere. Just
That
be
was an
that
incredible
person.
video. If we're talking about that
Yeah,
same video, yeah.
he can be that kind of a person, but the fact that he's doing all these things, it doesn't look good at all. And there's other things that I know about him, but I just he doesn't need to do that. He does not need to do that.
Oh, you're
That's
saying
I hate it.
behind the scenes you hear a lot of bad stuff about him, I'm sure.
Not just here. Remember, I live in South Florida, and so does Kobe Covington.
Okay.
Hmm that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's interesting what kind of guy really is he, but we'll see. I can't wait for that fight though. One
Yeah,
way or another, I mean, that dude is one of the best in the world. So, I got one or two questions left for you, just
yeah,
kind of about your show. I know you're doing your Mystic Black MMA, your own thing now, and it's grown already tremendously. But
yeah.
what's kind of do you have like an end game? Do you have any like goals? What's kind of like your next step? Would you love, I mean, I can imagine you would love to work with like ESPN or the guys over there, but like, is that something that you want to do, or you want to kind of do your own thing? What's next for you? Like, what do you aim for?
if I if let's say a company wants to pick me up and they want me to do interviews for them, of course, I definitely something I would look forward to. But at the end of the day, I think creative control is very important to the product that I want to put out. You
Hmm.
know, I don't want to specifically, because if I work for an ESPN, I'm probably going to have to ask the same exact like same question somebody else is going to ask because they want specific things. But if I'm just working for myself and I'm putting out what I want and I get to ask what I want, I feel like I can make myself very different than anybody else that's doing interviews, anybody else that's on a news station, anybody else that's on the radio, no matter what it is. I want to sound different. So, and I want to have that creative control of what I do. So I can go somewhere, I can have my own camera, my own cameraman, I can afford these things and pay for them through sponsorships and all those other things. And I don't have to work for somebody else.
Yeah, that's awesome. What if a company came to you though and was like, "We'll give you the creative control, and we'll let you do what you want to do." You could see yourself definitely working for someone like that, though, right? That's what's important to you,
For
the
sure,
creative
for
control.
sure, yeah, for sure, and of course, keeping my name and owning my name. Everything I want to own. I don't want anybody else to own anything about something that I built. And some people, you know, they'll get money thrown in their face, and they're just like, "No, I want to. That's fine. I'll take this money now." No, remember Dave Chappelle? Dave Chappelle got thrown $50 million, and he would have lost his whole. I mean, he did lose his brand because Comedy Central kind of took that, and he didn't get any of that back until more than recently. You know, so that is definitely important to me. Just owning everything that I've built.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think you have such a great mindset, and like you have such a natural way of like thinking, and everything that you kind of do, it's really like the natural way to do what you're doing. So I hope you realize that, because you really have kind of a, I couldn't describe it any better. It is natural. It's not, there's no reason for it. It's just you like doing what you do because you like it. So I think that's incredible. And my last question to you, I kind of like to wrap this up
Yeah.
with everyone. I usually clip these clips and put them on TikTok with the motivational music behind them. But what advice would you give to someone like coming up young, trying to do media, um, or just chasing their dream in general? Like, do you have any advice for them?
My advice to anybody coming up and doing media is to work hard, be you, be be unique, and if somebody calls you weird or whatever it is, who cares? That means you're making some kind of impact, and people are noticing. And just love what you do. Loving what you do is just one of the best feelings that I can ever describe. And I don't wake up in the morning knowing, oh man, I got to go to this stupid job. No, I can't wait to get to it, and I can't wait to go to work. I can't wait to speak to these people, and just sticking to what you do and try to see how you can be better next time. That's always important as well.
That's awesome, man. And like I said, that's going on TikTok 100%.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Darnell.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure having you on. Can you just plug I mean, you see the merch for people watching. We got the hat on. I saw the
Yeah.
sweater. But plug where can people find you on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere?
YouTube, you can find me at Mystic Black MMA, of course. You can find me on MMA Island. You can find me on Low Kick MMA as well. Instagram at Mystic Black MMA. Podcast on Spotify, staying Mystic Black MMA, the Mystic Hour. It's on there. All my podcasts are on there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just make sure you guys pay attention to my page and see all the things that I'm going to be releasing. I got a lot of things that I'm working on. If you want merch, of course, DM me on my Mystic Black page. This hoodie is a one of one, so these are
You
not
gotta
for sale.
you gotta ship those out to me. I need something like that.
I got you. If you want shirts, tank tops, things like that, and hats, you let me know. But this is a one of one. But I will be releasing a hoodie very soon. I promise you guys. I got one for you coming. But thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, man. You are amazing, man. I think you're gonna do really good things in whichever avenue or way that you want to go.